I wanted to be a psychologist when I was a teenager. She said, you'd be a terrible psychologist, you talk too much. And so for 20 years, I didn't do anything in the kind of helping space. Like, I think we do take on those things as part of our self-identity, and then we just believe them to be true. Like, I can't do an office job. I'm not going to be able to, I'm not good with words, and then when you start to break down those beliefs and just try it, you go, actually, like, my brain is neuroplastic. I can learn new things. I can unlearn things, and I can choose where I want to put my energy and what I want to be doing. It's really empowering, but I think a lot of us, I don't know, we just miss that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got another loaded question for you.
I love loaded questions.
So what does it look like when someone actually brings wellness, leadership, and emotional intelligence?
My shortest answer would be grounded confidence, which is I'm able to self-regulate from a physiological and an emotional level.
Are you feeling lost in your career, or you want to have a greater impact but you don't know where to start? Welcome to Kinda Planned, the podcast where we help you unlock the opportunities that you can't plan for. Through engaging conversations with expert guests, we help you unlock the mindsets, strategies, and tools that you need to build the career of your dreams. So subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Alex Cutterford, and let's take a moment to unlock your next opportunity.
Well, hello and welcome back to Kinda Planned. Today I'm joined by Jacqui Butler. Jacqui is the co-founder and executive coach for Leadwell and host of the Leadwell podcast. So thank you so much for coming on with me today.
Pleasure. Happy to be here.
Really excited to dive in and have a chat. It's always good to talk to someone, a fellow podcaster that's, in that space, trying to inspire people, trying to get people thinking about their career. And so I thought it would be awesome to dive in and have a chat. But I was sort of keen first to zoom in on your career and hear a bit about what your career journey's looked like that's led you to what you're doing today.
Sure. I won't bore you with like I was born in 19. But I would say that my career has actually taken a pretty, I guess it's not been linear by any stretch. So I was kind of the classic, did pretty well at school, not like I wasn't the Ducks or anything, but did all right. But didn't know what I wanted to do with that. I had a couple of ideas of what I wanted to be because, back in those days, it was all about like these labels. I think we're kind of moving away from that now. And the couple of things that I wanted to be, I had been dissuaded by my family. I wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to be a doctor, and had various family members say, nah, don't do that. So I went to the guidance officer when I was in grade 12. And they just looked at my grades and said, what about this? So my the first degree that I started was, I think, quite funny. It was a double degree in marketing and human rights.
Yeah, right.
I don't even know why that's off. It was a strange combination, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the first lecture that I had, the first marketing lecture, the lecturer said, welcome to university. This will be the first of 6 or 7 career paths you have over the course of your life. And it just dropped a penny for me. I was like, oh, well then maybe the pressure's off and I don't have to be like, this is what I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Maybe I can just be a bit freer with it. So went through various, I think I had, 18 jobs before I was 20. Moved into marketing, or kind of more organically. I moved to Sydney and did marketing, got to a point where I hated my job, studied nutrition. So I have a nutrition degree, and then moved back to Brisbane and back into marketing, but in the nutrition and wellness space. And that's where I really found my groove. And I worked my way up in that industry to a global leadership role, had a bit of a health stumble and just thought, well, what is it? Like, what am I doing with my life? What do I want? What do I want to be and who do I want to be? And I realized that leading and helping the leaders who reported to me on their leadership journey was easily my favorite part. And I'd had a leadership coach earlier in my career, and I just went, and so I called her and I said, hey, I think this is actually what I should be doing. And she was like, great, I was expecting your call. Let's, here's the train. And she put me in touch with people. I went and I did a couple of years of training. And yeah, here I am. That's the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, awesome. Such a great journey. And if there was one thing that I could achieve with people, particularly young and when they're starting to think about, entering the workforce and their career, if I could help everyone come to a place of realizing, the pressure is off to have it all worked out, that would be an amazing ability to have. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily going to happen for everyone immediately, because you do need that penny to drop for yourself, and it's going to be a different thing that causes that to occur. And like you said, you had that moment, but then even later on again in your career, you've had another moment. You've had something external happens in your life and it sort of causes you to reassess. It's probably why I've had so many people on this podcast that have been made redundant, and then they've gone on to do these awesome things. And people in that moment think it's their careers just ended, and actually it turns out in hindsight it was where it was really getting started in a space that they're now passionate about. So, and was with that moment where you're then later in your career and you've had to sort of step back and reassess, and you've ended up in this space, and I guess, are you in this space based on the fact that you were like, actually, I think I could have benefited from this myself? Or what's been the really driving passionate point for you in what you're doing now?
The overarching passion is to get more women in leadership. And I feel really strongly about that. And that was that I think I arrived at that through a couple of different junctures over the course of my career, where I very blatantly saw men prioritized in terms of their salary, in terms of their promotion and things like that. Like, there were lots of incidents that made me go, oh my God, this is not just a thing that you hear about. Like, this is actually real. So I feel really passionate about getting more women into leadership. But I think for me, I saw the benefit of when I had my leadership coach, and I saw how it shifted the way that I lead, and it made me become more of like what we would call a lighthouse leader, right? Like, I had people coming to me saying, I'm having a hard time with a team member, or I'm running a workshop. What would you do? Because you're good at this stuff. And it just kind of felt like it was in flow. And so I just thought, well, what am I doing? And don't get me wrong, like, having your own business is harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, let's be real. I would love to get like annual leave and sick pay and super and all of those things. But I wouldn't change it, because, sometimes when things are harder, you appreciate them more. And I just think it's a real privilege to get to spend time with people. And now I get to work with a lot of people, a lot of leaders. I would say 90% of my clients are women. And when you see them go through their own journey and see their confidence grow and see their competence grow, it's just a delight. Like, it's just such a wonderful thing to see that you might have had like just the tiniest little bit of impact on someone else's life for the better. I just can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, yeah. Are you aware of Kim Curtin? She's the podcast host, supports people in small business and stuff. But that was the question I put to her of like, we all hit this moment in our career where maybe it's a bit dry and we're, not really liking our job, and the moment comes and the penny drops of, I should start my own business. And we're just diving into, when is that a good pathway to take, and when is that maybe a bit misguided? Because often it's this pursuit of, I just want freedom and control of my own time and all of this, and then they think starting their own business will give them complete autonomy over their life that their employer was taking from them. And then all of a sudden you realize, I've lost a whole lot more control trying to do everything myself, and I'm now responsible for everything. And There's no backstops or, safeguards that were there for me. It's me and no one else, and it feels so deeply personal, every little element. I think that's the thing I notice, even just in doing my podcast and trying to grow it. There's elements of it that will just trigger, internal responses that just don't get triggered in the same way, even from the same thing when you're working in a paid job. Like when I was doing the launch for the rebrand, and looking to, do a bit of a launch event and stuff, it just hit me on a different level, like putting yourself out there in terms of, inviting people to come along. And in many ways, you're sort of asking people, hey, come and celebrate with me this thing that I'm working on in this passion project. And it just triggers all these insecurities that, like, I didn't even know those were there.
Yeah.
But if I was coordinating an event for work, which I do a lot, it's like, you're not taking anything personal. Like,
yeah, totally. I completely hear you. Like I went from when I was in like brand marketing roles, having a budget of up to $3 million and looking after a brand that's over $60 million in value. And there's this like glorious disconnection between self and brand, which I just took for granted. And I drove a project. We launched this big education platform, and I just absolutely loved it. And it was more like energy giving. And now all of the budget comes out of my pocket, and I am the brand. And I'm about to launch Leadwell Academy, which is a avenue for people to get training, leadership training. Every little, like, I'm not sleeping. I'm like, and what about, should I slightly tweak that font one size large? Like, it's ridiculous. And like, maybe I should launch it then, or maybe I should like, you just get, because it's enmeshment, right? Like it's hard to separate yourself from what you're, and then the other flip side is like, you're also selling yourself. So if someone says no thank you, it's like, oh,
why do you hate me?
Why do you hate me? You don't even know me. Please like me. I can help you. It's hard to keep you cool,
Yeah. So what does it look like for someone to become, I guess, more intentional and impactful in their leadership and career?
It's a big question. I think the question is the most important part. So I see all the time people who get pretty advanced in their careers. I would say, people who are in their mid to late 40s. I even have one client who's in her mid to late 50s and have woken up one day and gone, oh, how did I get here? Like, I just didn't, I've just drifted on the tide of my career and realized that I didn't choose this. And sometimes that's okay. I think that it's important to do that assessment and go, but is this okay? Actually, yeah, I didn't choose it, but I'm happy, or I'm, fulfilled, or I'm getting what I need from it, or whatever your criteria is. But I think more often than not, people will go, I want to take control again. Like, I need to get back into the driver's seat. And I think that's the first step, is that realization that actually you can be in the driver's seat, and there are great benefits to doing that. A lot of the time, especially with women, I'm not going to keep going on about it, but especially with women, there is such gratitude for anything that we get. So if we're offered a promotion, it's like, I don't really want to do that job, but I don't think I can say no. And I've done that multiple times, just going, okay, like, if you think I can do it, then I'll do it. And it's like, do I want to do it? That wasn't even a question, wasn't even a lens through which to view the decision. And so I think that's the first step. And I find I have clients who will break down in tears when I just ask them, well, what do you want? And they'll say, well, I don't know. No one's ever asked me that. Or I have no idea how to answer that. I don't know what I want. Like, that's a hard question. Ask me an easier one, you know? So I think the first step is really to go, actually, you get to live this life just this one time. And what is your 80-year-old self going to look back at and feel proud of? And what is that version of you going to look back at and regret? And make the decisions today that will make that future version of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. The ability to not just go with the whims of your career is definitely, I guess, become a major part of my message when you see so many people ending up in that place of, how did I end up here? And not even realizing that they weren't in the driver's seat of their career, you know. This catches people off guard because you're not set up to think about your career in that way. Like, and it goes right back to, you know, our early, and you alluded to it before, you know, the early experiences we have with thinking about our career are very prescriptive, and someone hearing one little aspect about you and essentially prescribing your pathway to you. For you, you were doing well at school, and so they said, go this pathway. For me, I wasn't doing good at school, so they said, do a trade, you know. So it's interesting, these influences, and then we never realize that we actually can be taking ownership in that space.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, at least you find out at some point.
Yeah, totally. And I would say as well that when you get to that point and you think, hang on, what do I want to do? What do I want my career to look like? I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't want to go back to the beginning. Like that, I don't want to go back to like when I was 18 and first choosing a uni course. So, and they think that that means that everything they've done up until this point is wasted and they've got to go back to the start. And that's just not how it works. Like whatever experience you have in whatever field that you have accrued it is still valuable and does still contribute to your forward trajectory, if that makes sense. Like you can go and retrain if you need to. Yes, you can switch careers if you need to. It might be a sideways movement. Sometimes it might be a sideways and a rung down, but other times it's a sideways and a rung up. Because I think, you know, if I think of all of the adult friends that I have, I don't know any, and I have put a fair bit of thought into this. I'm pretty sure I don't have one friend that is in the career that they went to uni for when they left school. But none of them have gone back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Like some have done huge career shifts, and other have done sort of career adjacent things, but you're not boxed in.
Yeah. That would be an interesting stat to know, like if they're, what is the percentage of people that actually stay or at least work in their field for, you know, a decent period of time in terms of what they studied. Not to say that that's a bad thing per se, but it would just be interesting, and it would highlight, different things about how people are making decisions about how they train versus the career paths that they're actually, I guess, destined for or desire to be in, and how we change our perceptions of our career over time and who we are and what we can do. Like so much of it is the belief, right? Like the mental hurdle for me to believe that I could get off the tools and become someone that not only thrived in an office environment but didn't just like stick out like a sore thumb as someone that was useless. I have this memory back when I was playing for a footy club in Queanbeyan, down near Canberra. And I can remember a guy, so he was on the footy club and he had gotten some sort of like temp job in a office. I can't remember where, but typically he was going around, you know, like doing people's paperwork and little office-y jobs. And then one day they asked him to write a letter for something. And he was saying like, and so he's like, oh, you know, wrote this letter. I thought I'd, you know, done a really good job. And he said everyone in the office was looking at it and laughing and this like cracking up laughing at how bad this letter was. And that would have been exactly me if I was in his position. So, you know, I probably had, you know, those sorts of thoughts in my head of what it would actually look like if I ended up in an office environment. And now I'm, heavily in that space and writing up things all the time. Still a terrible speller, but compensate with other skills. What a journey we have to go on.
I think we can, we adapt, right? And I just think we so often, and I see this all the time, we have people that live in this rearview mirror syndrome where they just go, well, this is what I've always done, so that's what I can do. Or I hear all the time, I'm not going to go for that job because I've never done it before. And it's like, well, if we only do things that we've done before, when does the growth part happen? Never. We just don't do anything new or different. So I just think we kind of, to your point, we really discount our ability to continue to evolve and also I think that we can really take on to or identify with what other people think of us. When I told I'll throw her under the bus, my mum, that I wanted to be a psychologist when I was a teenager. She said, you'd be a terrible psychologist, you talk too much. And so for 20 years, I didn't do anything in the kind of helping space. And I went into marketing where I was allowed to talk and not because of her, she was just doing the best she could.
Yeah.
But I took that on as part of my identity. I talk too much. But then now, I'm a coach and I don't think any of my clients would say, wow, she really talks a lot in my sessions. I maybe talk 20% of the time, which is probably why I have a podcast, so that I have an outlet.
You've got a different outlet. Yeah.
Well, my husband's like, could you just shut up? It's like, no, I haven't been talking all day.
Yeah. You burn all your listening capacity on your clients.
I have to hit my word count for the day and I haven't reached it yet.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I think we do take on those things as part of our self-identity and then we just believe them to be true. I can't do an office job. I'm not going to be able to, I'm not good with words and then when you start to break down those beliefs and just try it, you go, oh, actually, my brain is neuroplastic. I can learn new things. I can unlearn things and I can choose where I want to put my energy and what I want to be doing. It's really empowering, but I think a lot of us, I don't know, we just miss that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got another loaded question for you.
I love loaded.
So what does it look like when someone actually brings wellness, leadership, and emotional intelligence?
There's this great turn of phrase that I think came from Brené Brown, which is called grounded confidence. And my shortest answer would be grounded confidence, which is I'm able to self-regulate from a physiological and an emotional level. And also I know what I know and I feel confident in my knowledge, and I know what I don't know and I feel comfortable in that unknown. That's what the nirvana looks like, I think, in leadership. It's a leader who sees people, who listens to truly understand them, who is able to regulate their emotions to the level that they're able to co-regulate the emotions of those around them. And they're able to help people, to make people feel really seen, heard, and understood. But also they're comfortable to say, oh, I don't know. Or they're comfortable to ask questions. So they're still in their own growth journey, rather than, I think, what a lot of us think leadership is, which is this sort of arrogance of, I remember I was working for a company. We were going through we say a merger, but it was really a takeover. And one of the managers from the other company said to me, no person should ever know more than their leader. And I will never forget this woman who said this to me. And I was like, what? That doesn't make sense to me. Even back then when I was 21, and what did I know? But I knew that didn't sit right.
Yeah.
But I think that there is, that's kind of an old school idea. That is what I would say is a highly insecure leader. because if someone in my team knows more than I do, then what am I doing here? And what's the word? Like
self-preservation would kick in my mind.
Yeah. And I'm going to withhold information and knowledge so that I have the upper hand. And, it's this idea of, there's this sort of 3 levels of power, right? There's like power over, power with, and power to. That old style of leadership is power over leadership. Like, what have I got? What can I hold over you so that I feel superior? But it's driven by ego, which is driven by insecurity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the harmony is grounded confidence.
Yeah, and that's a great turn of phrase. Brene Brown, she's done it again.
I always joke, and I introduce her as my best friend, Brene Brown. 50% of people go, "Ha, she's so great," and the other 50% go, "Who? Like, is she actually your friend?" Like, because they've never heard of her.
Everyone turns around, no, she's my best friend.
Yeah,
I wonder how many best friends she has that she's never met.
Oh, millions.
Yeah, so powerful. And when I think about that person that you've just described, like, and how that wellness piece comes in, particularly around their ability to set boundaries because they're confident in themselves. And so they're not trying to overcompensate with, feeling like they need to do it all. And so for that reason, they know how to set their boundaries so that they do have capacity to do the things that they're most needed, what's most needed of them. And they can step away and just with that confidence of knowing, I know I can deliver on the things that I need to deliver on, and what's needed of me without any sort of pretense or masking or, that insecurity. Particularly when you're thinking about advancing your career, so many people advance their career driven by insecurity, and they're the ones where it's going to end up blowing up at some point, either because of the behavior they exude because of it, or of just the internal, wreck that you become when that is the driving force, versus when you do work out where is the impact I want to have. And then you're driven by the core values that you want to have exuding through and in anything that you do. Yeah, when you can find that space, all of a sudden, the momentum keeps building and building rather than hitting that wall where suddenly you're looking back going, how did I end up here? Or you just look back at your career with a pathway of destruction. And I'm sure we all know those people that, have come in and out of our lives throughout our career, that it's like you look at their career and you think, is there any bridge that hasn't been burnt?
Yeah. I see that quite a bit in people who are promoted before they're ready. So, and that you see it, like I actually find it really interesting to sort of just from afar look in and go, and people are like, why is she doing it that way? Why is he talking to me like that? And you just go, well, let's just put ourselves in their shoes. What would empathy look like here? And when you kind of play it out, you go, yeah, wow, they're really struggling. And, I don't think it's as simple as misery loves company, but I think sometimes when we're struggling and when we're backed into a corner, we make poor decisions because all our brain is driven to do is make us feel safe. And all it's telling us is, I'm not safe here. We're in constant fight or flight. So, and they're like the 2 things that you see the most, right? You see people being aggressive, overly assertive, overly dominant, power over, they're in fight. Or you see people being incredibly avoidant, and they cancel your one-on-ones all the time, or they kick the can down the road a little bit, or they ask you to do that presentation to the board that actually they are supposed to be doing. They're avoiding the hard stuff, and they're in flight, like it's their stress response. And I actually think that's where that layer of wellness really is most overt, is in stress. So I do programs as part of leadership programs. We'll do just like wellness modules. So even as specific as nutrition and macronutrients and stuff like that. But I also do like stress and energy and sleep and those sorts of things. And the stress one is the one where you see the leaders in the room go, that's what's happening, like use that. Because I think we often think of stress almost as an emotion, like I feel stressed or I'm just really stressed, like grouping it with overwhelm. But actually, stress is a physiological response, and it is your brain releasing adrenaline and cortisol. And so that is going to make your body do certain things like this so that it can fight or flee or freeze, right?
Yeah.
Because it's this kind of what's the word? Like I was going to say Neolithic, Paleolithic, like it's this caveman response. And so when you realize that you can actually do stuff outside of the stressful situation that can help get rid of all that cortisol or reduce the over supply of it, then you go, oh, actually, I did much better in that presentation, even though I didn't do any different preparation. I just managed my stress through exercise, or I meditated in the morning, or I had a sauna, or I, drank chamomile tea instead of caffeine, which elicits a stress response. Like really simple, minimal things that people can do that literally change their leadership.
Yeah. And what are some of the emotional intelligence skills, I guess, that people can be working through to help them sort of really operate well in a space of emotional intelligence when they're in stress or when they're just really thriving?
I think there's three kind of categories when we look at emotional intelligence that I use in a lot of the work that I do. The first is self-awareness. And so that is literally as specific as, what am I feeling? Like, what is this emotion? Can I name it? What is it trying to tell me? Why am I feeling that emotion in particular? Is it true? Because feelings aren't facts. So you might feel something, and that doesn't mean that it's appropriate for the scenario, but it might be a bit of scar tissue from a challenging time you've had in the past. So the first step is self-awareness, know who you are, and know your typical patterns of behaviors, which ones are serving you and which ones do you need to break down. And then you need to be choiceful and be self-motivated. So then it's like, okay, well, now I know this is how I show up. Am I okay with it? Which behaviors work in my favor and which ones are really holding me back? So then you go, okay, now I'm going to do something about it. So it's more of an action. What am I going to change? How am I going to change it? And then the third component is around purpose. So like you mentioned earlier, what are my values? What behaviors are in alignment with them and what aren't? But I take that particularly longer term, because sometimes we just make the decisions that are in front of us, right? And we sort of, our life becomes a series of small micro decisions. And then we go, well, how did I get here? So this third component is about, well, where do I want all of these decisions to ladder up to? What is the end game? And then you can use that lens to go, okay, which of these choices is going to drive me closer to that end game? Because I think a lot of us live in the moment, which is great, but it's a matter of being able to zoom out and zoom in as is appropriate so that we're heading in that right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's probably a good 18-month EQ program in 80 seconds.
Awesome. Hopefully everyone got that and they're sorted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's why I'm drawn to this idea of kind of planned. It's this idea of, having a direction, having a sense of knowing where you're going, but also being flexible enough in the moment to actually keep checking in with yourself and assessing things through your values and allowing that to help you sort of readjust or maintain. And it's not to go that you're not committed to a plan or an idea. It's just remaining flexible enough that you can actually stay true to those values, because that goal might not actually end up being the place that you're actually were wanting to get to. It's just the place you thought you wanted to get to. And so holding those goals in an open hand, not as an excuse to not try fully and things like that, but just to actually allow for your life to be happening as you go along a career journey or a leadership journey and these sorts of things.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like, I would delineate purpose from goals, because I agree with you. I think back of the goals that I've had that I've reached and gone, actually, I'm proud, but I don't actually like this. This doesn't feel right. But I wouldn't have known it didn't feel right until I got there. Whereas purpose is kind of akin to values in that, like, my purpose is to see the greatness in others and empower them to embody it, right? So it's not something that I'll ever achieve and go tick. And so I agree with you. I think that goals can be really helpful. And I hate this idea of everyone needing to have a 5-year plan, because I just think of it like, well, what is the next step? Staying in alignment with that purpose, but like try it on for size and see how it feels. And if it doesn't feel right, then check in with that and say, well, how does it feel and what would feel better? And then make those decisions. I like that idea of holding your goals in an open hand. I think a lot of people like white knuckle their goals and then go, oh, actually this sucks.
Yeah.
But it was my goal. So here I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And like to your point around them, all those micro decisions, what I've sort of identified is people often start with their values and then they assess all of their micro actions and goals like through their goals rather than their values. And the value was the starting point and then it gets left behind. It's the classic organizational, value statement that ends up in a document, never gets looked at again. No one ever actually allows it to influence anything. But when you actually you can start with the goal. And then that's already, maybe ultimately you identify who you are, what you value, and you find those deep things, and then you set a goal. And it's the values that you keep checking in with during your day-to-day and larger decisions that you make throughout your career, so that they actually do influence where you're heading. And the goal is the thing that maybe is more easily shiftable. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it's easier or less vulnerable. It feels less vulnerable to write a goal. Like it's more external facing, right? It's like, I'm going to go over there. But I think when we say, well, let's do some values work, people go, oh, like it's really vulnerable to look within and go, well, what do I stand for? And am I like comfortable to make decisions based on that? Because we are so externally influenced. And I think, like, I was talking to someone the other day and they said, yep, values are really important to me. I'm really values aligned. And I said, oh, okay, would you be comfortable sharing with me what are your values? And they went, people feel as though their values aligned, but until you literally sit down and do an exercise and define what your values are and what your definition for those values are and what behaviors align with them, and then right? Otherwise you get people and they just go, it's always these ones: honesty, integrity,
family,
authenticity, family. It's all, and then you go, okay, well, let's test that. And they go, actually, that's important to me, but that's not a core value.
Yeah. So how about you share more about the academy that you've got going, that you're about to launch? When's that happening?
Great question. In August. August is I'm putting it out there. It's in August, so it's built. It just needs the energy and the launch. So basically, the program is 3 chapters, 3 modules per chapter. And so chapter 1 is leading self, then leading others, and then chapter 3 is leading leaders. And so the idea is that it kind of follows you on your path, but you can dip in and out any of the modules at any time. So it covers things like confidence, emotional intelligence, resilience and stress management. I've got my little graph over here. Performance management, how to motivate staff. Like, that's a big question that comes up in coaching is, but how do I make them want to do the things that I need them to do? How you can be a coaching style of leader. So basically, I just started to notice a bit of a trend on what the main things that were coming up in coaching were. So I think I've done about 1,000 coaching sessions at this point, and there are just such clear themes that start to come through. And I just thought, I want to make this more accessible, because coaching is resource intensive. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of investment. And so basically I've taken the key themes and put them into an on-demand kind of program that people can access, so they can just increase their confidence and their competence, and we're just going to make everyone a better leader.
Awesome. Well, Jacqui, how can people find you and get access to that course? It'll probably be released by the time this episode releases, so people can go check it out immediately.
Well, this has all of a sudden become part of my launch package. Thanks. Leadwellco.com.au is probably the easiest way. Or on all of the socials, I'm Leadwell with Jacqui. And then I've got my podcast, which is also called Leadwell with Jacqui, Jacqui. Even my dad has spelled my name wrong before. So it's always worth throwing that out there. But yeah, any of the socials via the website's probably the best bet. And if anyone is interested in Leadwell Academy, I would love to hear every piece of feedback, because it's going to be an evolving, living, breathing thing. Because I just feel so passionately about giving people the skill. Like, do you find this? You might find this all the time in your work? Like, people get promoted into a leadership role, but not taught how to be a leader. It's like being put into a finance role and not being shown the accounting software.
It's come up in conversation before with other, particularly some of the other coaches I've interviewed, around how leaders are expected to do more than ever, and they probably have less time than ever and less equipped than ever. So and things change so rapidly, right? So absolutely, it's one of those things because when you look at organizations, there's all these areas that we can see, like, we just need to do better in so many different areas. But at the same time, that's not to have a go at any one individual that's just, trying to navigate their way through their own career whilst supporting a whole bunch of people that might be trying to navigate theirs, and all the different aspects. So, the more support that that leaders can get, the better, so that they can really know for themselves that they're in the right space and that they're first looking after themselves, and then they're able to help people go on that journey as well. So, absolutely. I hope people jump on it, and really excited to be following your journey and seeing how that all goes as you navigate it. You're the first guest to have thrown both mum and dad under the bus in one episode, so good job. Let's make sure we forward this one to them.
I'm really relying on that. Sorry, mum and dad. They're great. They're wonderful.
Yeah. All right. That's a good place to finish up. Mum and dad are great.
Yeah.
Jacqui, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Kinda Planned. Subscribe and send this episode to a friend that you think needs to hear it. Or head to my website, www.kindaplan.com.au, for free resources, or follow me on LinkedIn and socials so that we can keep the conversation going. Now go unlock your next opportunity.